So the first question for you, and it's not an easy one, is what needs to change and what should stay the same?
Ich würde mal also ganz praktisch anfangen mit dem Thema Buch. Ja, sind Bibliotheken in 10 Jahren noch ein Haus der Bücher? Auch ein Haus der Bücher. Wir haben jetzt heute gehört, was wir natürlich noch alles sind. Ich würde sagen, dass bis auf Weiteres das Buch ein ganz zentrales Medium in unserem Mediengeschäft bleibt. Denn wenn man sich die Prognosen anguckt, haben wir keinen Grund daran zu zweifeln, dass sich daran in Deutschland in den nächsten 5 Jahren etwas grundsätzlich ändern würde.
Just to pick up on that point, which is the market has changed though, in that you're right, people still read books, they want the physical book, but the producers and publishers and authors of books are pushing increasingly for digital, not for ease of distribution, not because it's cool and neat, but because they've changed from an ownership model to a lease model. And so my worry is that it won't be a choice of the communities to keep the books. It will be a product of the market that pushes it. And I mean, right now, DVDs are wonderful, but there are movies and music that have no physical form ever that libraries can't distribute because they can't buy them or to distribute them. So if we want to keep those physical books, it's going to be important for us to keep pushing that marketplace to include us.
I think you're right, and it would. I don't know what the future will bring, but in Denmark, their publishers are. Well, they have not been very clever to go into this new market, so that's maybe one of the reasons why the paper book have a good life in Denmark, I think.
Sue.
I'm going to boil my answer down to the people piece, and I think when I see this question, I'm thinking about all of us on the ground, those of us who are out there in libraries providing service right now today. And for me, the thing that needs to change is that little mind shift that we've talked about in different ways all day today. How we think about our place in the community, how we provide services, what's valuable, what's not, all of those things that we've been talking about all day, from my perspective, that's where those of us on the ground doing the doing every day, we need to be making sure that we're checking our own thinking and not making assumptions, and checking our own thinking about why we do what we do. And then with David's excellent suggestion, start more fully and more meaningfully connecting with each other. Stop working in isolation. Stop becoming frustrated. Stop feeling like you're all alone. You have to carry this load all by yourself, or that you're in an organization where you're the only one who gets it. You know, reach out to each other and form those relationships that you can count on to test your own thinking and to challenge yourself. So that first piece, what needs to change, that's what I think about that.
I think there's one thing what is very, very important to stay the same. It's the name, it's the label, because the label library is a label everybody trusts on that label. It stands for the worth of the library, of all the good ideas that's behind the library. And as I have been in my internship in Vancouver, the marketing director said, so there's one big mistake libraries make if they change their name, if they don't want to be a library anymore, and never change it. And it's a thing in Switzerland, we discuss it very a lot. There are lots of libraries that give up their name and they think, yeah, well, we are a Bibliothek, Infothek, there are lots of places, internet place or something like that. But I think what's very important is the name.
So our question is, shouldn't we go beyond knowledge?
This is where I get myself in trouble, and Lane Wilkinson the philosopher is going to be emailing me about the nature of knowledge and truth and epistemology, and I'll get frustrated and run away. It comes down to definitions, right? So for me, we had to do this in my school. We had to define what is data, what is information, what is knowledge. I don't know if you've seen the famous study, I think it was Zinn did, where they asked 53 information scientists a definition of information, and they ended up with 110 different definitions. So I don't know what information is, but I know what knowledge is, and knowledge are the beliefs, the understandings, and the frameworks in which you view and behave in the world. They are sometimes stated, they are sometimes unstated. That empathy, that emotion is part of knowledge to me. I think sometimes people yell at me because I use knowledge too expansively, because the idea that, truth is knowledge and is it validated? And Socrates said, I don't care.
So one of our favorites is Warren Burger. He's American, right? I don't know if you know him, but he says, knowledge is knowing what you don't know.
Yeah, that was what I meant.
So he said, let's stop to give answers, but let's start to ask questions.
When I'm thinking about this question and I'm thinking about going beyond knowledge, this is how I'm interpreting this in my own experience. For instance, in our library, when there is a resistance on the part of the older generation to be in the same spaces as teenagers, for instance, and we recognize that there's an opportunity here to find creative ways to create intergenerational cooperation and learning, whether it's an older person teaching a younger person how to sew, or a younger person teaching an older person how to use some sort of technology. And then suddenly there's empathy because there's some trust that's required to be able to say, I don't know something and I'm going to allow you to teach me. So from my circumstances, that's the kind of environment that we work to create every day that allows for that learning, that knowledge, that empathy, those bridges to be built.
So my next question is, do we overestimate the significance of technology at the cost of the collection? It's the collection again.
Hermann.
Why should I answer? Because we have a makerspace in our library. Ich glaube nicht, dass wir die Technologie schätzen. Ich glaube auch nicht, dass zumindest mal in unserer Bibliothek die Collection underestimated ist, sondern ich glaube, es ist einfach eine Frage der Ergänzung. Etwas machen, etwas arbeiten, in einem Prozess Learning by Doing eben zu Wissen kommt, was man dann auch wieder mit anderen austauschen kann. Und wenn letztlich dann eben ein Makerspace ein Ort ist, wo man eben Wissen austauscht, wie man etwas produziert, wie man etwas macht, wenn man in einem Makerspace austauscht, wie man eine Technik, eine Technologie, eine Software einsetzt, um eben in Zukunft sein Leben zu gestalten, dann finde ich das eine Ergänzung zu den Büchern. Es heißt nicht, das eine gegen das andere auszuspielen, sondern es tritt etwas Neues neben etwas, was man bereits hat, und man muss immer wieder entscheiden, wie viel Energie, wie viele Mittel, wie viele Beratung, wie viel Betreuung steckt man in das eine und wie viel in das andere.
But what we want to say with this is that we're wondering what in fact you are doing with all those magnificent equipment in your library. We think it should be great. We are not against 3D printers and so on, but we think it should be wonderful if those were instruments to create a new collection. And we are wondering about the fact that a lot of those equipment is in your library. People can use, and of course it's very important that people can learn how to 3D. But we think, well, in fact, it's the same as old Heidelberger press. They made books, etc. You're making content, and in fact, you're building a new collection.
Let me give you an example. So, many amazing things happen because of the power that the maker technologies have to bring people together. For instance, we had an interfaith community come to the Fab Lab. This was the community's idea, not ours. Come to the Fab Lab and explain to us that they were interested in having a sew-a-thon, an all-day sew-a-thon, to create these sleeping bag backpacks for the homeless population in Syracuse. And the winter was coming, and this was a grave concern. And could they use our machines? And of course we said, they're your machines, and yes, come and make that happen, and we can help further. We'll put out a call into the community for donated fabric for additional people who may have skills in sewing or an interest in sewing to come and join you so we can make this even bigger and more impactful. And at the end of the day, we had, over a 24-hour period, over 300 people come to the library to participate in sewing these sleeping bag backpacks for the homeless population in Syracuse. And we received so much donated material that we didn't have enough space to store it. So we had to put it in our cars.
We're in Switzerland, famous for neutrality, and I don't think this will end well for you, because Dante said you will end up in hell because of this neutrality. Now, perhaps it's overdoing it a bit, talking about times of moral crisis, but we do face a lot of moral dilemmas, and a good way to deal with these dilemmas is to ask questions, like Rob already told you, and organize our thinking around things we don't know. So, is it possible to be neutral nowadays?
And of course, the first one. Hermann aus der Schweiz. Erzähl mal.
Muss ja so sein. Ich denke, es kann gar nicht mehr neutral sein in Anbetracht von einer Auflösung von gesellschaftlichen Werten, wenn man anknüpft an das, was Arne heute früh berichtete. Man muss in einer Welt, die eben nicht mehr strukturiert ist und nicht mehr klare Werte hat, kann man auch gar nicht mehr eine neutrale Position haben, sondern wenn man neutral ist, hat man eben auch schon eine Position, weil neutral eben auch eine Position ist. Und genau das ist der Punkt. Also von dem her kann ich eigentlich ganz einfach sagen, wir müssen unsere Position finden und wir müssen, sei das in einer Corporate Identity oder wie auch immer, definieren, wo wir stehen und von unserer Position aus, was wir als Bibliothek mit einem Service Public erreichen wollen oder auch erreichen müssen, weil wir eben auch eine öffentliche Aufgabe haben.
Inge, you used the word neutral as well in your presentation.
I used the word
Neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The short answer is no.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
and
your turn.
I think neutral is not. Well, it's not relevant to talk about it, because when you're standing in front of a guest in the library or user in the library, there are different people, all of them, and they need different service from the librarian, and it cannot always be neutral. And in this complex world we're living in, there are so many answers to the same questions. So I think we have to be professional, but we don't have to be neutral. We have to be reflective and curious about the people we're standing in front of, and of course we have to have books from them who are supporting with the Mao and them who are supporting with Donald Trump. We have to do the broad collection, but in our service to the guests, we have to be professional but not neutral.
You spoke this morning about a very difficult situation in Munich because there's a lot going on in our city, and it's reaching the library nowadays. And how do you deal with that? And how do you explain it? Is it to the politicians, etc.? Because they, in my opinion, they always have an old-fashioned idea about neutrality. They say, well, it's about having no position at all. And what I discovered in Munich, you have a position as a library. You're choosing for a position.
Ja, also ich kann mich eigentlich auf der einen Seite nur anschließen, dem, was jetzt auch schon gesagt worden ist. Auf der anderen Seite machen wir in unserer Programmarbeit, Veranstaltungsarbeit, wo wir beispielsweise sagen, wir sind ein Forum für eine bestimmte Art von Diskussionen, die bei uns stattfinden. Auch die Erfahrung, dass uns von der Politik im Zweifelsfall auch gesagt wird, was neutral ist. Also wenn ich mir vorstelle, in Deutschland gibt es mal, das ist ja jetzt nicht so unrealistisch, es gibt so etwas Ähnliches wie ein Patriots Act, ja, der problematisch ist. Ja. Weil er problematisch ist, haben amerikanische Bibliotheken dagegen rebelliert in unterschiedlicher Form. Ja. Und diese Art von Zivilcourage, ja, um das mal ganz deutlich zu sagen, die sehe ich in Deutschland nicht. Wir sind in dieser Hinsicht, man merkt, wir sind eine junge Demokratie, wir haben noch ganz stark Obrigkeitstraditionen. Wenn wir über Bibliotheksethik diskutieren, im Kollegenkreis gibt es, ich weiß noch, ein Kollege sagt, was brauche ich eine Ethik? Ich bin ein Beamter. Also, ja. Was gut und schlecht ist, sagt mir im Zweifelsfall mein Dienstherr. Ja, und dabei meint Ethik ja etwas ganz anderes. Ja. Auch in einer Demokratie ist es möglich, dass Gesetze verabschiedet werden, die im Nachhinein für verfassungswidrig erklärt werden.
Are there no-go areas in the United States as well? Or,
On the local library level, I can answer this question. Is it possible for us as an organization in a local library to be neutral nowadays?
Yeah.
Well, no, we've never been.
Okay.
But similar to what he was saying, my library exists in a village that's very conservative. Yeah. Our community meeting spaces belong to the community. So yes, we get pushback and we get feedback if we're hosting groups, showing documentaries, etc., that aren't necessarily in alignment with the majority of people in the community. What do we do when this happens? Well, we choose to obviously not remain neutral, and we seek and work to build understanding amongst the people who are pushing back that the public library is intended for this very purpose, for difficult and conflicting views and tough conversations to happen so that we can assist the community in coming to better levels of understanding. Are we successful with that all the time? Absolutely not. But that's our reality.
Keep right, yes.
The last questions are for you. Anyone?
I would like to ask Dave, as head of a School of Library and Information Science, how is the education and formation of new library and information professionals contemplated when you speak of library as school of knowledge?
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question, because a lot of the time the easiest people to blame are the traditional librarians who don't want to change, followed quickly by the ancient dinosaurs that taught them. How do we teach people to be competent human beings, right? It's not the soft skills and teach them how to communicate. It's how do I say, you came home from today, you're going to be depressed. This is how to realize that you're depressed, how to identify what it is that, and how to work through it. I mean, I'm terrified of having to teach that. I mean, psychology professors are terrified of having to teach that. But unless because everything you've heard today goes right onto your shoulders. Everything. The future, neutrality, the mission, the vision, everything you heard today
was not a committee. I mean, even the committee process was people making that decision. How do we get people to stop, realize, reflect, and be strong in what is ultimately this passionate area of great conflict? What is the future going to be? How do we bring those views together? How can I have endurance in the face of a community that may not understand? And how am I vulnerable in public again and again and again?
Yes.
And so for my problem, yes, we need to figure out the curriculum and the skills. But that's we're going to try it in South Carolina, and we're going to and we do it by going and talking to people like here and say, how do you deal with your staff when they get this? What do you want to expect them, et cetera? So I know that's not a really concrete answer, but that's the hard one that we're dealing with right now, which is everything that's been today is moving from collection focused. All right, it's all about how to organize the books, to skills focused. Okay, it's all about answering questions and doing tech support, to people focus. It's all about this screwed up personalities and things between our ears. So.
Okay.
Shall we finish then?
So thank you very much for staying with us in the show. Yeah, it looks good like this. Yeah.